Okay, so some time rules for 6301 and 6313. Application for preliminary injunction or temporary restraining order, and there is no time constraints on this. I tried to make that clear in that video, but just in case I wasn't, it may be granted at any time prior to a judgment, basically. A TRO can only be granted pending hearing for a preliminary injunction. But other than that, there's really not any time rule. Okay, service of notice of motion for preliminary injunction. This is in 6311. So service of the notice of motion for preliminary injunction, because remember, it always has to be on notice, so you have to serve a notice of motion or possibly an order to show cause. And it has to be done with the summons or at any time prior to judgment. You just can't do it before the summons. So that's in 6311. 6312, posting of undertaking by plaintiff seeking preliminary injunction, and it must be done prior to the granting. And it doesn't apply to the village, certain public officers, or state or municipal corporations. All right, so now attachment time rules. There's a few of these. And I'm going to do everything, whether it's 20 days or not for this one. 6212, posting of undertaking. It has to be on motion for the order of attachment, and it's a minimum of $500 by the plaintiff. 6211, granting of order of attachment without notice can be done before or after service of the summons, so before the summons or after the summons, and at any time prior to judgment. 6210, granting of TRO prohibiting transfer of assets by garnishee, and this can be permitted upon motion on notice for order of attachment. So that's interesting because normally you think of a TRO as ex parte and a preliminary injunction, but it actually can be granted to prohibit the transfer of an asset by the garnishee upon motion on notice for an order of attachment. Okay, so 6212. Plaintiff's filing of order of attachment and supporting papers and summons and complaint within 10 days after granting of the order. 6213. So to make the attachment valid, and if the defendant dies prior to service or a 60-day period of the publication, summons must be served upon the executor within 60 days after letters are issued. More 6213. Action is commenced by filing the summons and complaint and securing an index number pursuant to 304. And within 60 days after the order of attachment is granted, this has to be done. The action must be commenced. So the plaintiff has to file the order of attachment within 10 days after granting it, after it's granted, and commence the action within 60 days after it's granted. 6211. Plaintiff's motion for an order confirming attachment. Generally, that's within 5 days after levy. The only exception to that is when it's on the one specific ground in subdivision 1, the time is 10 days from the service of the affidavit. Okay, and that's actually, it's called the garnishee's statement, I think it's called, or something like that. I forget if it's called a statement or affidavit, but I think it's an affidavit. Anyway, okay, hopefully I have it in these somewhere. Okay, 6211 sub A. Levy by sheriff pursuant to an order of attachment at any time prior to final judgment. A levy upon personal property may be made by service of an order of attachment and is typically valid for 90 days. Okay. 6218, sheriff's filing of inventory of the property seized. And that's within 15 days after service of the order of attachment or forthwith after such order has been vacated or annulled. So the sheriff has to file the inventory within 15 days after being served with the order of attachment. So that doesn't mean that it's 15 days after he seized the property. It's 15 days after he was served with the order of attachment. 6219, garnishes service upon sheriff of statement specifying debts to defendant within 10 days after service of order of attachment or sooner if the court directs. So it is a statement, apparently. I'm sorry. And that is the 10 days. Plaintiff's motion for, I did that already. Defendant's demands for papers at any time after levy. That's in 6212. So the defendant can basically demand that the summons and complaint be served. He can demand it any time after levy, and the plaintiff has to serve, not the summons and complaint, but the papers to get the attachment. And if he does demand it, then the plaintiff has to serve them on him not more than 1 day after service of demand. 6223, motion to vacate or modify order of attachment just has to be prior to the application of property or debt to the satisfaction of the judgment. And it can be by defendant, garnishee, or any person having interest in the debt. Okay, notice of arbitration hearing. This 7506 has to be at least 8 days notice. 7508, making of award by confession at any time within 3 months after statement is verified. 7509, written application for modification of award to arbitrator within 20 days after delivery of award to applicant. 7509, service of written objection to modification of arbitrator's award within 10 days of receipt of notice of application for modification. 7509, disposition by arbitrators of application within 30 days. 7510, application for confirmation of award within 1 year of delivery of the award to the applicant, unless vacated or modified. 7511, application to court to vacate or modify arbitration award within 90 days after delivery of the award. Again, 7511, the application to the court to vacate or modify an arbitration award is within 90 days after delivery of the award.